This is Moneyline Mania with Chaz and the crew.
This segment is also brought to you by Sports Betting Weekly. Check them out as they will be back very, very soon on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Fantastic handicappers. Chaz really brings the best out of the best when it comes to betting. And Chaz, what's going on, buddy?
It's a pretty cool time of year because once we get started up again with our show, I take a hiatus because I do it every single day. It's a grind. I'm almost feeling like I'm itching to get back, but I'm going to keep going a couple more weeks because I got a few things I'm taking care of. And one of them is called the first Saturday in May. We got some good horses that I've seen. And I laugh because I wanted to talk to Wes about that because with baseball season starting, it's kind of like with the horses. You got to watch a few of these races. You got to watch a few of these games. But we've got something, Wes, going for us that most people don't have going for them. John! John from GMF Sports. He's great, but his best sport is baseball.
When it comes to baseball, I lay off of baseball because to me, the summer is for Canadian football. From now until end of May, I'm into NHL Playoffs, the horses, because really every Saturday from now until mid-June is a big Saturday in the horse racing world. But during the summer, random day with no CFL, John is the only guy on the planet I will just blindly play his picks. And it's a bold statement, but it's pretty true. John, he has a crystal ball and the Bentley model of crystal balls for baseball.
You guys got me thinking now that I should start betting on all your bets because you guys are right now at 84.5%.
Wes, when you've got guys that are giving out their win percentage, they're doing it traditionally. They picked 5 games. I had a game where you guys were talking about the St. Louis Blues and how they couldn't win. And I said, I don't really care who wins. I'm taking the teams over for the first pair of teams over. You hit 6 bets in one play. The sportsbettinglessons.com aspect of what we do here, Wes does it on his Chicago options traders. We don't necessarily look at it as you need to find 5 games. And when John gives us a play like that, I can go back and take my Easy Sports data, and I may take John's play and have 5 bets off of it because I love when you find a pitcher and you're not afraid to lay the money because at what point is too much of a number after that negative sign? Kershaw, right? Negative 400 sometimes he's on the mound. That's when you got to look sometimes at other alternatives. And John knows so much about why he likes this team. It allows you to look at team totals, and that allows you to say, hey, I'm going to go with the team to win, but I'm going to give the 1.5 runs because otherwise, if you bet minus 400 all day long, our 84% is a loser.
It depends on how you play it. Errol, to your point with our percentage and how we're winning, if you have the right bankroll management strategy, we are right more than we are wrong. Baseball is tricky business because money line can pay minus 400. It's not necessarily going to pay the bills. You got to hit a lot of those. If you lose one of them, doesn't feel as great. But Errol, to the point you made, if you were to just blindly play our plays with a proper bankroll management strategy, the same dollar amount, the same $1 on every single bet, and you stay there for the week, you're going to win more than you're going to lose.
You know, Wes, I think part of it is a lot of sports bettors are afraid to bet a quarter or a half. Oh, I'm going to bet the game, just betting the game. How many times have we talked about it where those dips made all the difference? You bet the game, you lost. I bet the same team you did, dude, and I won.
An easy thing to really get confused by is you look at a game and you kind of know who's going to win. But then you start to think about, well, the half a point or the 1 point. I see a lot of people buy the half a point or buy a point or tease it up, and they're afraid to admit that you really like the other guy. When you buy a point, you really do like the other guy. It's the number. Wanting to cheer for a team, that's not an investment.
And that's why all the different handicappers we have on this particular segment, and even Sports Betting Weekly, really amazing. You guys should be proud of the work and the time that you put into this because you guys can make a living. People can make a living doing this. And that's why we bring these guys on this show because they're the best of the best.
Here's where I'll go with hockey. We're in an interesting time. We're down to less than a dozen games left in the season. So the East is all about seeding at this point. That's all these teams are playing for. And quite frankly, I think from 1 to 8, they can all beat each other in a 7-game series. The East is that strong. Every single one of these teams are going to end up in the playoffs with above 90 points. They're incredibly dominant. So when I'm looking at the East, Islanders and Columbus probably have something to play for, but I'm kind of laying off the East. I'm looking at the West. The Stars at this point, I think they may find a way into the playoffs. I think LA is going to see a little bit of a decline, although they've been doing a nice job of not allowing a ton of goals. They can't really score goals. They're only poison. Vegas is hard on the decline, and unless they get healthy quick, I don't see them making the playoffs. But I'm always looking for value. So I like to bet against the teams that are on the road 2 nights in a row. They call me Blackhawk West, so I will call it out when I see value on a Blackhawks game. I'm looking at the Blackhawks going over a half a point for the first period. I believe that they will score a goal in the first period. It's at minus 145. That's a pretty tremendous value. The other game I'm looking at Pittsburgh and Nashville. These two teams both are at or very close to top 10 as far as goals scored, but they also don't allow a ton of goals. Nashville has a ton to fight for. Pittsburgh, Crosby and Malkin and all the goals that they can score, but Pittsburgh is pretty shut down. So I'm looking at under 6.5, Pittsburgh, Nashville. Those are my 2 plays for Sunday.
You talk about hockey, and the Eastern Conference is very crunched together, and anybody can win the East this year. But I also think even though the Lightning are a wild card team, I think they're a very good wild card team, and I think they can win the whole thing with the talent that they have, and especially at the trade deadline, the move that they made, adding another offensive talented player. So watch out for Tampa. You like what the Rangers are doing. We got to see the Rangers do it when the pressure is on them. When they're playing at home, all the pressure is dampering on them when they're down by 2 with a third period going on. So you really can't choose and pick what's going to happen in the playoffs just because of what you've seen in the regular season.
These Rangers can score goals. It's their goaltending and their defense that I worry about. The teams that are getting fairly decent goalie play but great defense, they're the ones that I'm really investing the trust in. I think Carolina is going to be the toughest one coming out of the East. They're not allowing goals, they're scoring goals, and they have a really great connection between defense and goaltender play.
So what do you got to win? 16 games to raise the cup?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't see the Rangers winning 16.
The Rangers will be lucky to get out of the first round. I think they could get out of the first round, especially if they match up very well against Pittsburgh. The way they've really manhandled Pittsburgh the last couple of weeks. Again, Pittsburgh's done it in the playoffs. The Rangers have not done it in the playoffs for a couple of years. Pittsburgh's built for the playoffs. We don't know if the Rangers are built for the playoffs. Like Worldwide West has said, when it comes to defense and goaltending, that's what wins championships. As you saw what the Islanders have done back-to-back seasons, they did it because of goaltending and defense. The Rangers, their weakness is not goaltending. Their goaltender could be a Vezina Trophy winner, but there are particular games that really stuck out to me. He didn't play well in. Going into the playoffs, he's going to have to play consistent if they plan to win anything in the playoffs.
I've got some NHL futures. Pittsburgh, 1,500. So 15-1, Pittsburgh.
You got Sidney Crosby. Don't ever rule that man out. He's going to the Hall of Fame. They're getting decent goalie play in a league that is not goaltending right now. So Pittsburgh is very quietly not allowing a lot of goals. So I don't hate the play. There's certainly value there.
Well, when you look at 18-1, those aren't supposed to cash, but that's a number that jumps out at me because they got 90-something points. What about Carolina plus 950, 9.5-1 for the Hurricanes?
That's my favorite play. That is the team that we've cashed the most tickets on this year. Early in the season, they were going over 3.5 before it was cool to go over 3.5. They were going over 2.5 before the league figured out they could go over 4. Anderson has been stone cold between the pipes. That one I think a cash.
Here's the thing about Carolina that I worry about going into the playoffs. They're a very good regular season team, but in the playoffs, they have played under their talent. They have played teams that they should beat, and they lose against those teams. And that's happened since the Rob Brind'Amour era started. I think Rob Brind'Amour is a great coach. I actually skated with him years and years ago when he played in the NHL, when he played for Philadelphia. So I know Robbie very, very well. I met him again at the Dallas draft years and years ago. Rob Brind'Amour has really turned into being a great coach in the NHL. The problem with Carolina going into the playoffs, it really was never goaltending. It really wasn't defense. And remember, Anderson wasn't their goalie the last couple of years. They brought Anderson in the offseason. So they expect Anderson to really be a different goaltender in the playoffs than what they have had over the last couple of years. I think the problem with them is their defense has really fallen off in the playoffs. They are not as good as they are in the regular season defensively. I'm not going to bet that Carolina is going to win the whole thing out of the Eastern Conference again this year.
The odds are extra high, maybe because you're not the only one that knows that, because Florida is half of that.
There is tremendous value there. But Errol, what team did you call out earlier that's got a chance of making noise?
Tampa.
Tampa. That's who Carolina would play in the first round. So your point has come full circle.
If they do play Tampa in the first round, Tampa wins that series. Because I just think Tampa is built for the playoffs. They always have been. And they have the best goalie in the world. That's what wins championships. And we all know what type of goaltending you need to win a Stanley Cup. And by the way, they won back-to-back championships. So don't count the Tampa Bay Lightning, especially as a wild card team.
All right, so let's talk about that from the prop swat, because I just did it with Villanova. If you're listening and you're betting a future for any NHL Stanley Cup win, even the conference, take half your money and get 2 tickets. So if you're going to bet a C-note, get 2 $50 tickets, and then you can thank me later after you sell it on prop swat.
Chaz, you wanted to do some NBA futures plays.
We had talked about the hockey, so let's look at the basketball. And the reason is I'm not betting futures for baseball. The earliest you're going to see me betting a future for baseball will be about week 5 of Canadian football on this show. Then I'll be talking because I want to see who's there. And what I'm looking at is I'm looking for somebody that dipped. I want a dip, but I want a dip like they went 11-19 in March and April. But I know they're a better team. So instead of getting 3-1, I'm getting 7-1. So when we look at the NBA, the thing I asked you was, could Milwaukee get beat by the Nets? Because those are the top 2 teams on the board in the East. I watched the Nets a few times recently. I don't see how they beat Milwaukee.
I actually believe the Nets could beat Milwaukee. It all depends on health and Kyrie Irving's play. If Kyrie Irving takes his game to that next level like he's done in the playoffs, absolutely, I think the Nets can knock off the Milwaukee Bucks. The problem is Kevin Durant 100% healthy? Is Kyrie Irving going to take his game to that next level? And is Ben Simmons actually going to play sometime this year? If he does, you have a great perimeter defender that can play and defend multiple positions, and that gives them an edge right up front when it comes to playing Milwaukee. That's the problem that they had against Milwaukee in the playoffs. They had Kevin Durant guarding the Greek Freak. If Ben Simmons is on the Nets, guess who's going to be defending the Greek Freak? Ben Simmons, who's an all-world defensive player. That takes a little bit of pressure and a little bit of stress off of Kevin Durant where he can concentrate offensively, which he couldn't do last year.